Okay, so what we're going to do now is set up Adobe Premiere to, we're going to set up a timeline and we're going to import our images. So what I want to do is launch Adobe Premiere and click on New Project. And then under New Project, what we're going to do is set up a folder on our drive that will allow us to save the project folder and take our drive with us. Now I do not have my List C hooked up to my computer, so I'm going to use my internal drive where my project assets are. But if you have a List C or external hard drive, you want to save this on your external hard drive so that you can take it from lab to lab. So what I want to do is create a new folder, and in this folder I'm going to name it Premiere Pro Files. I'll create that. Now what I want to do is give it a name. So I want to give it a year, a month, and a day with the name of the story. Then I want to make sure that all my preview files, and these are files, we'll talk about this in a different tutorial, these are files that Adobe creates. In particular, in our class, we're worried about audio preview and video previews, and we want those to be the same as the project. So we have these same as project. If I wanted to change them in a different location, I would check Browse and then save those in a different location. There are reasons why we do this. In a production environment, it helps sometimes with speed, and we may have different drives we're saving to, but in this instance we're going to save it as in our project files. Next thing I want to point out is this renderer may be different on your end. I have a NVIDIA CUDA card, so I am able to select this option. If you do not have a card that's that works with CUDA, then it'd be grayed out and you'll see software only. So let's go ahead and click OK. Okay, when we click OK, we're given this option to choose sequences. We could create our own sequence, or we could choose available preset. And we're going to do a high def sequence. So I'm going to select under the digital SLR 1080p. 1080 refers to the vertical resolution, so that's 1,800 pixels from top to bottom by 1,920 pixels from left to right. Progressive we'll talk about in the video module, but that's what that P stands for. It stands for fields, progressive scan. Then we could give our sequence a name, and we could also rename this in Premiere. So I'm going to leave it so we can name it in Premiere, and I'll say OK. Obviously we're in Premiere. I mean, we can rename it inside the project. This is the default layout, and layouts can be changed and modified and saved, and those are under Window, Workspace. So I'm using the Workspace editing, which means I have the source window here, my program, my timeline here, and my program canvas window here, and our timeline's down here under the sequence. So now what I want to do is import my folders. So if I go to the media browser, I'll be able to look for my drive, click on the drive, and choose the folder I want to import. Now if I click on internal drive here, I'm able to import the entire folder. If I click on the folder in the left column, I'm able to import images. I want to keep this organized, so I'm going to click on the drive itself and then choose Resized Images. I'm going to do a right click and choose Import. Now when I click on the Project tab, and this project tab is named my project 214 Audio Stills Package, I have a folder called Resize Images. Now I could click on this drop down arrow and see my images in here. And I could choose to look at them as a list, or if I switch to the icon view, double click on this, it brings up a window where I can see my icons or see thumbnails of my images. I'm going to switch this back to list view. And because I have them organized with number first, they're in the sequence that I would like. So I'm going to go ahead and click on I'm going to double click on an image, which will bring it up into the source tab. And now I see my image. Then I'm going to click on this icon and drag this down to my timeline. And I will see that if I zoom in using the plus key, that this clip is 5 seconds long. And if I look in the program window, that the image, that part of it's cropped out. See, I don't have his foot or his back foot in the frame, but in my source, it's there. So what happened? Well, remember we resized our images to 2880 wide, and our canvas is only 1920, so we have 960 extra pixels. So there's a couple things we can do. We could come up to Premiere Pro, Preferences General, and we'll tell Premiere that we want all our images to scale to the frame size. So default scale to frame size should be checked. This means that the images will scale automatically to the 19 by 20 format. The other thing you may want to do is set the duration. Right now it's at 150 frames. It's at 150 frames, which gives us 5 seconds. At 30 frames per second, 3 times 5 is 15, so we have the 0 and we got 150 frames. That gives us 5 seconds. If I want to change this to 3 seconds, 3 times 3 is 90. I put in 90 frames. 3 times 3 is 9. I just add the 0. So now we have 90 frames, which will be 3 seconds. But what happens now? So now I come back to my folder, choose an image, put it down here, and wait a minute, nothing's changed. It's still too large. The reason is I have to re-import my images. So I'm going to click on here and delete this folder. It's going to give me a warning. I'll say, yeah, go ahead and remove that. Go back to my media browser, re-import my images, come back to my project tab, do the same process, bring my playhead over, and look at that. It's scaled now, it's letterboxed on the side, and it shows the entire frame. And it's only 3 seconds long. Another way to do that is you could always right click on the image and then choose scale to frame size. But I like setting it up in the way we did. But I don't want these black bars. I don't want it to be letterbox. So what I want to do is come up into the effects control. And in the source window, there are a couple other tabs: audio mixer, metadata, and effects control. So I want to select the effects control and come down to motion and change my scale so now I have a nice 16 by 9 format, and it's the way I want it. Okay, so let's say I wanted to bring all these images in. Actually, let me just bring in the so that goes from 14. So 1 to 14. 1's already in there. I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to drag these in. I don't like that. So I'm going to go 1 through 14. Drag this into my timeline. I'm going to hit the backward slash. Gives me my full frame. Okay. So what I want to do is resize all of these so they don't have the crop. So I could click on the image, bring my source window, come to the effects control, come down to the motion tab, drop down tab, and scale this. Okay. So it looks like 119, well, 118. Yep. Looks like 119 is going to fit that edge. And I clicked fit, so it took up the larger part of my program window, and that looks good. So now what I could do is I can, excuse me, I didn't mean to do that yet. So now I could come to motion, and I could copy this. So I could say edit, copy, and I could come down to all my images, select them, and in Premiere there's multiple ways to do one thing. This one example is how I want to apply this scale to the entire, all my sequences. So I want to go edit, paste. And what I did is I copied the effect. And now when I go through my timeline of the images, all of them are scaled correctly. Okay. And if I click on them individually, I'll see in the effects control that they're all scaled to 119%. And that's how you can set up Premiere.